All right. Oh, let me just adjust for the camera. I never know how to adjust for my live stream. So, all right. Hello, everybody. So, welcome to my Sunday live stream. While people are joining, I just gotta see how I look on my channel, just on my phone, just to make sure that I'm online, just to make sure that everything is working. Um, and we're gonna talk about how to learn iOS development. So, ooh, oh, I see myself. Okay, I guess we're good. We should be good. Okay. So I guess I will just put my phone right here, and I hope yeah. So I know, so I see everybody. All right, 3 people. Uh, how are you guys doing? So on this live stream, I really would like to talk about how to learn iOS development and kind of share with you resources and the process. And it depends on your background. What would be the fastest and easiest way for you? So, and just kind of get your feedback and just chill and talk about iOS development and learning programming. Let me, all right. So, I guess, so who is on the stream right now? Can you hear me? Because I could hear myself. Can you hear me, guys? And where are you watching from? Because I really want to interact with you. I really want to get your feedback because I think it's the whole point of a live stream, so we can have a conversation. Oh, hello, QA Live. Thank you for joining. All right. So I think we can just go ahead and get started. So with iOS development, it really depends on your background, your how fast you learn, and how fast you adjust to the material. Because there are a lot of components to iOS development, so it can be overwhelming if you know nothing about programming. So, but if you do have background in other technology or other programming language, it can be a little bit easier. So let me share. Let me try to share my screen. If I can share my screen, because I do have resources for you guys. But if I can share my screen, it's not a big deal. I can just send you the links for the resources that you can learn. So my background. So I started doing iOS development maybe like 2.5, 3 years ago, something like that. And I started really far from production development. I started from testing perspective. So I started working with iOS, and it is really interesting technology, and it was really enjoyable working with iOS. And it is really enjoyable working with iOS and working with mobile. In my opinion, it's way more enjoyable than working with web, but it's just my personal preference. So, and when I started learning iOS development or Swift programming language, I started with Apple documentation, and it was not helpful. I mean, it was in terms of understanding general understanding of Swift as a programming language, and Swift libraries like strings and integers, doubles, floats, things like that. Um, Libraries that they have like UI kit. I haven't really looked deep at that time into UI kit, because when I started working with iOS, there was a demand like to do iOS development like right there and then. So, but for the resources that I would use, I would recommend start with hacking with Swift with Paul Hatson. So, like, this is the link. It's an excellent resource if you know nothing about iOS development. If you have nothing, and if you know nothing about mobile development or a programming language, a Swift programming language, it's an excellent resource. He has tons of materials. He has like books. He has um, videos. He has projects that you can learn, and it's absolutely amazing uh, resource for you guys to like start learning and understanding Swift. And he touches a little bit on everything. So another resource is Let's Build That App with Brian Boom. Boom. So Brian is actually a pretty good teacher, and he has really amazing resources here, really amazing tutorials. But a little warning here. So I think it's easy. It will be easier for you to start learning with hacking with Swift with Paul Hatson, because he really walks you through the basics. He really explains to you the fundamentals, like why you're doing that. Like, for example, I don't know, table view controller. Why do you need to identify your cell? Where do you need to identify your cell? How to create UI um, in your storyboard? How to create UI in code? So, if you don't mind, I'm gonna I'm gonna drink my beer. So it's it's an amazing resource. I wish I found him a lot sooner, because I found my first resource on Treehouse, and I started just learning like Swift and iOS development on Treehouse. It was helpful, but not as helpful as Paul Hatson and the whole Swift community. But again, I wanted to expedite my process as soon as I can. So let's build that app. With the Let's Build That App, you're gonna have really good foundation of the basics of iOS development. Oh hey, Ayaz. So I'm talking about how to learn iOS development, and I'm sharing some of the resources for iOS development. I just was talking about Paul Hatson and hacking with Swift, and I can just reshare the link that I just shared. So it's a really good resource to start. If you know nothing about iOS, if you know nothing about Swift, this is the place to start. So, like, really good fundamentals. Like, you're gonna have really good understanding of a Swift as a programming language and as of iOS, and you're gonna start building your projects on the really simple examples, so you understand the fundamentals. Because I think when you know nothing about iOS development, or for any technology for that matter, and you jump on like Udemy course, like end-to-end project, like let's build an app or a website or whatever it might be, that may be overwhelming, and you can miss out on really fundamental things. And you follow the tutorial, But after like you sit there and like, okay, what do I do now? Like, how do I build my own website? What do I need to do? What do I need for that? So with Paul Hudson, he gives you really fundamentals, like really pretty much from the when you start doing his projects, he gives you fundamentals from the project one. And as soon as you enter iOS development world and community, iOS community, you have two um, types of iOS developers, I would say, two camps. People who do UI in code programmatically, and people who do UI in storyboards. And maybe you have a middle ground, people who do like some of like a mix, some of it in storyboards, some of them in code. So, and a lot of the time people ask me, so if you want to learn how to build your UI in code, Brian Woong, he is an amazing teacher. He has really amazing tutorials. So, and a lot of the time people would ask me like who are trying to learn iOS development or um, enter Swift community, iOS community. What should I learn? Should I learn like UI kit or not UI kit? Yeah, UI kit because Swift UI is out there, but we're gonna talk about Swift UI a little bit later. So should I learn how to build UI programmatically, or should I learn how to use storyboards? I would say you should do both. Because for my side projects, I built my UI programmatically. I built my UI in code, and I think it's a lot easier. At work, we use storyboards, and it's not everything in storyboards. It's not 100% storyboards. It's like more so like a mix or a combination. Like you just identify your like basic elements in storyboards, and then you shape and like configure your UI elements programmatically. So, but definitely you need to know how to use storyboards because you don't know what team you're going to work with, and you should be able to work with both. Um, and yeah, like Paul Hudson explains the basics of the storyboards. Well, it's just an excellent job. And Brian Woong, from like all of his tutorials, they're pretty much in code. How to build UI in code and how to build constraints and things like constraints and how is like a method how to render your UI programmatically. So how to tell your UI element, hey, you should be this tall, like this wide, and you should be like right there on the screen, for example. So that's how you build your UI programmatically, and that's the like use constraints for that. There are plenty of Udemy courses, but I think before you go and spend your money on courses, I think you should really try learn fundamentals for free because Paul Hudson, his materials are for free. Then when you have fundamentals, like you can go and buy a tutorial, like end-to-end tutorial, whatever you like. It really doesn't matter at this point. And then as you do tutorials, as you do learnings, as you learn iOS development, you should really uh, try to build your own projects. And you might wonder, how do you build your own projects, right? If you know nothing about iOS development, if you know nothing about mobile development, maybe you finish like a tutorial or like a couple of tutorials. What do you do? So you reuse those materials. For example, pretty much in your first tutorial, you're gonna learn how to build either like table view controller, it's the easiest thing, or like some kind of view controller or login screen, or something, and you can build on that, because a lot of iOS apps, if you look at many iOS apps that are out there, they're the same. You have some kind of like view controller with like images, or like for example you have login screen. It's your regular view controller, like you have background, you have text fields, you have button, and then like you have main screen. So for more simpler UI, it's probably table view controller, very convenient to use, very convenient to reuse those cells, or a UI collection view controller. And then you render your UI for your cells on your screen. It's either like stack, like horizontal stack, or vertical stack, like horizontal and vertical. And you arrange your elements and you provide constraints. So majority of mobile apps, they're pretty much the same. They receive data from the internet, like it can be a JSON or something, or it may talk to a SDK, some kind of SDK, some kind of backend. For example, Firebase, one of the SDKs that people use for the backend if they don't want to build backend. So, and you render that data into your UI, and you send the data to your server, and yeah, that's it. So, and yeah, reuse those materials that you learn and try to build something simple. Try to build, like, I don't know, address book, or to-do list, or what, like, really at this point, whatever you like. Try to reuse those elements. Try, if you build a couple of projects, try to combine them and build something different. um, so like that's how you learn, until you do work yourself, until you try to solve your problem yourself. Like, you're not gonna really learn. And another approach, and I know that, like, go like just to go and build your app on your own, it's like it can be challenging and intimidating. Also, but also when you go and learn to, like, for example, you picked out a tutorial and you're building an app, end-to-end app, and you notice that you need an improvement in like certain areas. For example, you are not clear 100% how to build a UI table view controller. What do you need to do for that? How to render sections, how to render cells. So you go and you find those tutorials, now focusing specifically on table view controller, and you learn that. Or UI collection view controller is a little bit more complex. So, and it's really hard to understand the anatomy of like that view controller at first. So you complete your tutorial and you go and you improve your skills, and you um, and, and you master like that particular area that like you're not like that you're missing. So that helps. So another uh, another way to learn iOS development, and it's like, it's not really about like tutorials or like videos or materials, and it's about staying connected with your community. It's really important to, I don't know, to have some kind of membership with a Slack community, or go to your local meetups and like chat with other iOS developers, because you can't learn iOS development in isolation. You can be just like isolated developer, because at some point you would have to work with a team. Um, yes, it is possible just to go and pick up projects, but I wouldn't recommend that. I would, before you go and pick out your individual projects, I would recommend to work with a team and to learn from other software developers how they do things and learn best practices and see what is working and what is not. So it's really important to stay with the community. Follow people on Twitter. I personally, I don't like Twitter, or I do like Twitter before, but now I on Twitter regularly because I follow a lot of iOS developers and people sharing stuff, and people have discussions about, for example, now Swift UI and Xcode 11, and I have just tons of information from that, and tons of useful links, tons of useful information, and you get to know other people, and it's how you network, and it's how you also uh, kind of being present in the community. And it's not only, it's important not only just follow people but also participate in discussions, kind of put yourself out there. Another good way to participate and network with people is a Slack community. So I personally like Sean Allen, and this is his YouTube channel. So he has definitely bigger YouTube channel than I do. So, and it's not like really a competition. I just like really appreciate his work. I really appreciate his Slack community that he has. It's really helpful. It's really supportive. So, and it's really important to, like, when you stack, ask people questions and learn how to unstack yourself. It's really, really important. Try to listen to like podcasts. Like Sean Allen has podcasts. There are other Swift podcasts, because the more you learn, the more you surround yourself with Swift iOS development related topics, the easier it will be for you to grasp the whole concept. And it's really hard to believe or understand how your brain works, but when you surround yourself by relevant information, and like just listening to podcasts or following people who do iOS development on YouTube, and Twitter, your brain and like your subconscious starts to reform or reshape the way you think and the way you learn. And from podcasts, and from hearing others people's stories, it's really important to have the encouragement when, like, for example, one person knew nothing about programming and then picked up a couple of tutorials or went to a coding boot camp, and now he's an iOS developer. And I started following other software developers a while ago before I started doing iOS development. Back in the days when I was doing more so like QA work, I really wanted to do like test automation. And in my mind was that test automation is not as different from actual software development, because we write code and we write test automation, or like a program that would test another program. So, and I follow other people who were doing test automation, but I didn't really get enough from it. So I started following other software developers and just hearing their stories, how they started with their programming and with their software development careers. And I learned the whole tons of information about different tools that later on in my career I actually used, because during podcasts, people might share their like technologies that they use, libraries that they use. You make notes. You make notes, and then you try to do the same thing. Then you try to develop the same thing that they developed. So it's really, really beneficial. So, but yeah, I think like, as I mentioned, there are three components to like really like learning how to do software development or iOS development. Learn your basics, and um, as soon as you start following other people on like Twitter or YouTube, you're gonna notice that people are talking about Swift UI, and like really, when you look at on the internet, it looks like Swift UI. It's such a big thing right now, and everybody wants it, and everybody's so into it, and there are tons of videos on YouTube already about Swift UI. But reality is, if you try to get your first iOS development job, like now, you have to learn UI kit. More importantly, Swift UI was developed on top of UI kit. So you have to know the basics. You have to know that technology. So and Swift UI is gonna be there for a while. I don't think that. Oh, I'm sorry. UI kit is gonna be there for a while. I don't think that UI kit is going anywhere. So learn the basics, learn how to do what, and you're gonna notice pretty soon, as I mentioned, that people like they're iOS developers who do UI and code, they're iOS developers who do UI programmatically. You have to know both. You can make your preference and you can make your choice and decide for yourself, yes, I want to do iOS development like programmatically, or I'm more comfortable with storyboards. And it's totally fine, but you have to be familiar with both. Because like I said, you never know what theme you're going to work with in the future. So, and the third component is your community. To participate with a community, talk to other people, put yourself out there, and um, it's really important to share what you learn. And if you have like Instagram or YouTube channel or Twitter, just share your screenshots or videos or whatever, like what you learned. Try to explain to other people how to do what you just did. And you're gonna be surprised. There are a lot of people that are not quite there yet where you're at now, because there are people who are just like, for example, simple thing, how to build a UI like table view controller. You master that part, or you know the basics of that part, because there are so many things to table view controller. So you know how to build a basic table view controller. What's next? The next, you go and you teach other people, like, hey, this is how you do UI table view controller. And there might be people who are curious about it, or like looking for a video, or like really quick tutorial how to build it. And then you not only you improve your understanding how to do things, but also you put yourself out there, and day by day doing that, you become an expert in that particular area. So it's very important to share your knowledge, and it's really important to just say out loud what you think, what you understand, and not just say out loud like with an audience, but like record it, and then you listen to yourself, and as you record for the audience, you really form your thought process. So it's really good way to learn, to actually to teach someone what you already know. So let's talk about like the timeline. How soon you gonna you gonna be able to build an app, or like to get a job or become an iOS developer? Because like we all know, like if like pretty much if you follow like any of the like software developers on YouTube, the drill is the same. You go, you learn a tutorial, you build your own app, you do your portfolio, you go and you look for a job. So, but actually, the like that period between you learning how to code and how to build iOS apps and when you get your first iOS job, it can vary. So, as I said at the beginning of my stream, if you know other programming languages or other technologies, it's going to be a lot easier for you. So, for instance, I before iOS, I was doing test automation, and I already knew how HTTPS or HTTP requests work, like backend, what JSON is. I work with other technologies that software developers use in their day-to-day work. I work with Python, so it's a little bit simpler than Swift, but the concept is the same. So, and Python is actually used in Swift programming language behind the scenes. So, if you didn't know that, I didn't know that. I learned from Paul Hudson. So, but anyway, I already knew the fundamentals, like how to work with backend, how to get data from the backend, how to use GitHub, how to what is CI/CD and how CI/CD works. So those like very fundamental things that are really important for software development, I already had it. So all I left to learn is just like iOS portion of it, like UI kit and how to render your UI, how to send data from your UI to your server, how to parse JSON, things like that. So and that part is like easier. And another thing with software development, you're never done learning. So there will be always something new, something that you don't know, something that you never worked with. So, and I think it's pretty interesting. So you will master certain like components of like UI kit, or if you work or if Swift UI progresses really well, like with Swift UI, but there will be always something that you need to learn. There will be always something that you need to be better at. So, so my journey, and I'm still on a journey with like iOS development. My journey was quite easy with iOS because, like I said, I knew fundamentals. If you know nothing, if you're just like, oh, I just like mobile apps, and I would like to build mobile apps, so it can be a little bit longer for you because you have to learn so many concepts like Swift, UI kit, um, GitHub, unit test, yeah, things like that. So, so guys, how are you learning like software development skills, and like tell me about yourself. Are you doing more iOS, or you work with other technologies? Are you working with like development, or are you working with QA in QA? Yeah, I want to hear back from you because like I feel like I've been talking for a while, so I want to hear from you. Like vice versa, what would you recommend for software development or for learning a programming language? Do you know, or do you have a good resources that like you like and that you use? And what is your journey? Like, is it easy for you, or was it easy for you to learn programming, or like to really learn any kind of technology? Tell me what you think. Because I'm almost done. So like I pretty much like in my stream shared my resources that I use, um, and kind of main points, like how to do it and how to learn iOS development. I would like to hear back from you. So I said I'm just at the start point of learning. Hey, I asked, are you learning iOS development? Like, do you want to build iOS apps, or what are you learning? What part are you learning? Hey, Dmitry, test automation. Test automation is actually not that like hard when you think about it. So, Dmitry, how do you like JavaScript? I used to work with JavaScript, and I think it's pretty it's pretty neat language. I like it. You can do so many things with JavaScript too. Like with React Native, you can build mobile apps with in JavaScript for both iOS and Android simultaneously. I mean, you have to do additional work with iOS and Android ecosystem, but like basic UI, like basic app, you can build pretty much in UI in React Native. So Dmitry said, "Well, it's a bit hard, but I like it." Programming language is pretty hard to learn, pretty hard to grasp at the beginning. I feel like when I started learning a programming language, like let's say like Java or Python, I had really the hardest time to understand the basic concepts. And then like I don't know what happened, it just clicks. I don't know how. And with iOS, like some of the like fundamental like things, like for example, how to build UI table view controller, it's really easy, but at the very beginning, like oh my god, there's so many steps that you need to make. But after I built like 10, 15 components using UI table view controller, it's actually not that hard. It's like when you repeat your steps regularly, it's not that hard. But it will click, Dimitri. It will click. Like just keep going. I asked, are you learning XUI test for test automation? I know, like just from my experience, XUI test is really easy to learn. So if you know basics of Swift programming language, and you can utilize that tool pretty much like right away. UI kit and like iOS development is definitely way harder than just XUI test. XUI test, in my opinion, is really easy. It's really easy to utilize, and Apple provides the like whole support how to do it. All right, so I think I'm gonna finish now my live stream. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for hanging out with me. I had a lot more people than I had my at my first stream. Yeah, thank you so much, and keep on learning, keep on going. And this live stream is gonna be on my channel, And I'm gonna share the links that I have like on the description. So if you need to go and utilize those resources. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video or my next live stream. Bye, guys.